Hey, it's Kaero. Welcome back to the channel. We need to talk about soldiers. We're in the middle of the spoiler season for the Brothers' War, and Wizards of the Coast seems to be going hard on Soldier Tribal to the point it's guaranteed to see some play in competitive standard. Today I'm going to run over all the uncommon, rare, and mythic rare soldiers from the Brothers' War, so when it releases you can hit the ground running the first minute of release and make a killer soldier deck on day one. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to start with a bomb just so you know what we're talking about here. First, we'll reveal Harbin, Vanguard, Aviator. This is a 3/2 flying legendary creature for 2 mana that pumps your entire squad if you attack with enough soldiers and gives them all flying. Harbin is a beater, and this card is incredibly pushed. Usually, the going power and toughness for a card like this would be like 2/1, 2/2, and given that soldiers want to make as many tokens and go as wide as possible, the ability on Harbin to pump the squad doesn't seem too far out of reach. Next up, Recruitment Officer. If you've been playing mono-white aggro in Dominaria United Standard, you know that the best one-drop mono-white has right now is Hotshot Mechanic. Basically just a 2/1 because the deck doesn't run vehicles, so the crew doesn't come into play, but it's still a very good one-drop. Recruitment Officer will 100% be taking the pilot's place, as it's just a strictly better 2/1 creature with its ability to tap 4 mana and grab another soldier from the top 4 cards of your library. Often this ability is not going to be needed or used, but it'll be great for when games are stalled out to have a mana sink like this on your 1-drop just to keep the pressure going. Next, we have Siege Veteran, which is a 2/2 for 3 mana that states at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever another non-token soldier you control dies, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. This thing is incredible. If you were playing Standard this year, before sets rotated out in the fall, you know that Luminarch Aspirant was basically the best card in mono-white aggro. Then here we have kind of a Luminarch Aspirant at home, if you will. Now, I understand this costs 1 more mana, but it places counters every turn and starts off as a 2/2 instead of a 1/1, and even generates tokens when your soldiers die. So this can brawl a little bit faster. It is going to be your 3-drop instead of your 2, but I think it's almost as good. This card should have no problem seeing play, and it should be noted that if Siege Veteran itself dies, this is a drawback. It will not create a token. Something to be aware of. It's only other soldiers that you control and non-token ones. Next, and I think you are going to love this, we have Myrel, Shield of Argive. This is a 3/4 for 1 white and 3 generic, which reads, during your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. Whenever Myrel attacks, create X 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens, where X is the number of soldiers you control. This is a big deal. A little bit expensive at 4 mana, but shutting down the opponent's instants, activated abilities, and combat tricks on your turn is a big deal versus aggro decks. Also, if you're able to attack with, say, 3 soldier tokens, they remain alive until your next turn. You attack again, double those soldiers again. This card has to be dealt with pretty quickly, and even so, they can't deal with it on the turn you play it because it stops their instant speed removal. If you play this, they're holding up an Infernal Grasp or something like that. They cannot do it on your turn. They'll have to wait and main phase mana for it next turn. This is going to also be good against control. This is going to be crippling probably to the mono blue tempo deck that's currently in Standard that wants to counter your creatures, cast Slip Out the Back, Shore Up, and things like that on your turn. This is going to see play. It's going to be a great card. Even if it turns out to be too expensive, maybe by 1 mana, and it's just a sideboard card versus control, it's going to be good. It'll still be great in the sideboard. Next, we are switching into blue with Zephyr Sentinel. This is a 2/1 with flash and flying that states return up to 1 other target creature to your hand when it enters the battlefield. If it was a soldier, put a +1/+1 counter on Zephyr Sentinel. This is a very nice uncommon that gives you the option to return a soldier to your hand and make it a 3/2 flyer for 2. If they don't have any other flyers, that's going to be a beater very quickly. Pair this with a soldier with maybe an enter the battlefield ability to negate the downside of bouncing a creature back, and this thing could wreck. This will also be incredible in response to spot removal. If the opponent uses a card to destroy your soldier, you just flash this in. Another soldier that you control, you flash this in, return that soldier, negate their removal, and then you have a 3/2 flyer, and you make up for the tempo that way. Very potent card. Let's move into the next blue card. This is a 3-drop with Skystrike Officer. It's a 2/3 flyer that creates a 1/1 soldier when it attacks. You can also tap 3 untapped soldier tokens and draw a card. Now, I'm going to admit this is a little awkward if the opponent has an opposing flyer that's big and able to block this, because basically you need it to be attacking every turn. It's also not a great blocker, but if they have no flyers, this can easily spiral out of control. Not only does it make chump blockers for the backswing, but you can tap your soldiers at the end of an opponent's turn to draw cards. If you're playing a lot of cards quickly, like this deck wants to do, you're going to need them. This is a solid card. Branching into red-white now. I'm not sure that red-white's going to really be in the soldier deck, but we do have one here. It's Fallaji Vanguard. 1 red, 1 white, 2 generic. It's a 2/3 first strike that gives another creature you control 2 power until the end of turn anytime itself or another creature comes into play. Now, this can trigger multiple times per turn, and it even triggers when it comes in, pumping one of your other creatures by 2 power immediately on turn 4. And as we have seen, there are a lot of soldiers that create 1/1 soldier tokens, so this thing can trigger maybe once or twice. Could be pretty nasty. Lastly, from the Brothers' War, we have a special land for soldiers in the form of Fortified Beachhead. This land comes in tapped unless you control a soldier, or you reveal a soldier from your hand, which actually shouldn't be a problem in Soldier Tribal, and has an activated ability for 5 to pump all your soldiers +1/+1 till end of turn. To my knowledge, no other creature types are getting specialized lands in the Brothers' War, not that we have seen yet, which makes Soldier very special, and obviously it's a mechanic or a creature type that they're going to want to push. Now, before I end, I'd like to point out there are currently a lot of really good soldiers already in Standard, and many of them are format staple. Cards like Brutal Cathar, Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, Guardian of New Benalia, Valiant Veteran, which doesn't see play right now competitively because I don't think there's just not enough soldiers, but I'm about 90% sure this is going to make the deck when the Brothers' War comes out and it's going to see play. Savior of Allenbach is another soldier that's a good card that has not seen a ton of play, which might be included in these decks, depending on the speed of the format. So if you're looking for a deck when the Brothers' War comes out, you're a fan of aggro, you might want to consider soldiers. It's looking pretty strong so far. I'm going to post more deck ideas and spoiler ratings from the Brothers' War as we get them. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're interested in deck lists, card evaluations, and gameplay, consider hitting that subscribe button, and thank you for hitting the thumbs up. I will talk to you next time. Thank you.